Hello, Firefly family. I'm Miss Cindy, and today I'm in a dark room because we're going to learn how to make a shadow puppet. If you've ever seen one of our shows with Firefly Family Theatre, you know that whenever you see Spark with her family, she is in a shadow world. She goes behind a screen and you see her in a special light. And so today, you're going to need a flashlight. You can just use a regular old flashlight, or you can use a cell phone, or you can use anything that has a really nice light on it. And when you shine the light, and you'll need a nice blank wall, like this, and a room where you can turn off the lights. Now, as you can see, I have a little bit of light next to me. It doesn't have to be very dark in the room. You don't have to go into a completely dark room to do this, because if your flashlight is bright, then you can still see the light really, really well. And what's really cool is that then you can also see your shadow puppet really well. See? And I've still got light in the room with me, and I don't have to be in the dark. And when I turn her like this, woo! Spark flaps her wings. Look at that. So let's get started and make a puppet together.
Okay, so the first thing that's important to know is that no two fireflies are exactly the same. So your firefly can be as unique as you. You're going to go to the top of the page, or the little paper that you've chosen to use, go down just a little bit to leave yourself some room up at the top, and you're just going to draw a circle. Now, you can trace a circle if you'd like your circle to be a little more perfect, but that's up to you. There are no perfect circles in nature, so you really don't need this to be perfect. Then you're going to use your finger to determine which side, what size the neck will be. Right there, one on each side of my finger, and that's where you're going to start the next part of your firefly, at this little neck. Now, I'm going to use my finger to help guide me, but I'm not going to trace my finger just yet. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to make just a little curved line out from my finger to the base of my finger. And then I can use my finger again on the other side, or I can take my finger away and just do the same thing over here. And I don't bring them together at the bottom. If they touch, it's all right, but you don't have to connect them at the bottom, because you're going to make another one using your entire finger. And this one's just slightly bigger, and it goes all the way down past your knuckle. All right, and then the same thing on the other side. Now this one does connect at the bottom, so you're going to bring it together at the bottom. So now you have a head, a chest, and his thorax right here. I'm going to turn it, and you're going to use your finger. I go to the knuckle at the same part of his body. My knuckle is lined up with his body, and I go on a slightly upward angle. I'm just going to trace my finger to make his first wing. And then I'm going to move my finger this way. I might move it out a little bit, because on fireflies, the bottom wing is actually a little bigger than the top wing. Great. And then I'm going to turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. And it doesn't have to be perfect or precise or the same on each side. It can be a little different. That's okay. It just gives him some character. All right. And then for the antenna, I'm going to draw a line. Hope you can see this. And then draw another line. Now, these lines are a little thin, and the thinner things are, the harder they are to cut out. So what I like to do is make a little rectangle. So I'm going to make another line next to this one and connect them up here. And then another line, connect. All right. And the thicker they are, the easier they'll be to cut, but you can make them as thin or as thick as you'd like to make them. So let's go ahead and cut out our firefly. You have your firefly. All we need to do is put the stick on the firefly. This is where I'm going to use my tape. Now, I have a very thick piece of masking tape. You might have thinner masking tape at home, and that might be a little easier to use. But if you, like me, only have the thick masking tape, you can just tear it down the middle. Just like that. So you have two smaller pieces. Now, I've decided to use my chopstick because now I see just how thin I made his body. The dowel rod might also work really well here, but a chopstick is more likely what you're going to have in your drawer. So I'll show you with the chopstick. I'm just gonna do, whoop, shaking the table, shaking the camera, ah! And then I go like this. And remember, everything that sticks out of the edges will show up in your puppet. So you want to be careful when you're taping to just go ahead and fold things over. They don't have to be perfect. I'll lift that up so I stop shaking the camera. There you go. And fold that right over like that, because again, you're going to be in the shadow, so people will not see the tape on the front of your puppet. And there you go. Now, when your puppet flies in the shadow, all you have to do is give a little twist of the stick and it will look like he's flying. All right, let's try him out.
All right, once you're back in your dark room, you take your flashlight and you go in front of your blank wall, take your puppet, turn on your light, and then you're going to hold your puppet a little further from the wall and your light just a little bit lower than the puppet so that you can see the puppet in the light. And the further your puppet is from the light, the smaller your shadow will look. But the closer you get your puppet to the light, the bigger it will look. But sometimes that also makes it a little blurry, so you just use your judgment and you figure out where you want it to be. All right? And then if you just give a little twist of your fingers, its wings will flutter. Doo-doo-doo. Come and follow me down to Firefly Grove. You see? Now, if you see, you can see my hand popping up into the shadow, and if you don't want to see your hand, you just have to use a slightly longer stick, and that will solve that problem. Now, if you've ever come to one of our shows in Firefly Grove, you know that we use a shadow screen. We have this special shadow screen. It's a hula hoop that we glued some white fabric to. You don't have to make anything this fancy if you want to use a screen. You can just hang up a piece of fabric or a bed sheet. Bed sheets work really well. Try to be sure that it's a blank piece of fabric or a blank bed sheet with no pictures on it, because the more pictures there are, the more confusing the puppets become. It's harder to see what's going on very clearly. So I'm going to show you how this works today. All right. I take my light. I stay behind my light or on the side so that my face doesn't accidentally creep into the shadow. And I've got my puppet between the light and the screen. Now, the cool thing about using a screen is that you can have the audience sit on the other side. It's pretty neat because then you can be back here doing all kinds of puppets and they're on the other side and all they see are the puppets. So if you need more than one hand to do this, which you probably will, you can either ask someone to hold your light for you, or you can bring in, I've got a little table here that I'm going to bring in, and I'm going to place my light on the table so that now my two hands are free. And then I can do my puppets in front of the screen and an audience can sit on the other side, and I don't have to worry about holding the light. Another way you can do this, let me just show you real quick. See? La, 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 la. Another way that you can do this, if you've ever gone camping, you might have one of these special lights at home. It's called a headlamp. And I go camping a lot, so I have a headlamp, but you might not have one of these, so you might have to have somebody hold your flashlight for you. This is really bright, so I'm not going to face it to the screen or to the camera, but I do want you to see what happens when I use my headlamp. All right, I want you to see the other side here, and you've got your puppet right back here. La, la, la. And then your audience can sit on the other side. So, those are some cool ways to perform your shadow puppet. I hope that you have a lot of fun with this project, and I really hope that if you make a shadow puppet show that you'll share it with us. Send us your videos, send us anything that you create, pictures, anything. Thanks so much for joining us today here in Firefly Grove. We'll see you later.